What would you do if the child you raised, the one you gave everything to, turned around and betrayed you? Would you scream? Would you cry? Or would you smile quietly and wait? Because Evelyn did wait. She waited after her son locked her out. She waited after he took the deed to the house she built. And when the time was right, she reminded him exactly who she was. He thought she was old, helpless, alone. He thought he could use her love like a credit card with no limit. But what he didn't know was, Evelyn was hiding $9.5 million. And she was done being quiet. Evelyn May Brooks never planned to adopt. She had dreams once, big ones. She was a nurse. A sharp one. The kind who never needed to check a chart twice. But life had a way of throwing curveballs, and Evelyn? She caught every single one. She married young, lost her husband too soon, and never had children of her own. But she had a house. A strong back. And a heart bigger than most. She met Ryan at church. He was 6. Dirty fingernails, quiet eyes, always watching. His foster parents sat 2 pews behind her and whispered things they thought no one could hear. But Evelyn heard. And when she found out they were giving him up again, his 3rd foster placement in 2 years, she didn't think twice. She told the social worker, "He can come home with me. I'll figure out the paperwork later." She didn't ask for anything. Not a thank you. Not a promise. Just one thing. That he'd always know he had a place. And for a while, that's exactly what it was. A home. Evelyn didn't spoil him, but she didn't let him go without either. She packed his lunch every day, ironed his shirts before school, taught him how to read a budget, how to say, "Yes, ma'am," and "No, sir," how to look someone in the eye when they shook your hand. She was tough, but she never hit. She was firm, but always fair. She was what most kids dream about when they say, "I wish somebody would just love me." And Ryan? At first, he bloomed. Graduated high school. Got a partial scholarship to community college. Started talking about real estate. Big dreams, just like his mama. Evelyn smiled. "All right then, baby. Go build something." And he did. He got a license, sold a few homes, met a girl named Natalie. Natalie was sharp. A little too sharp. The kind who smiled at Evelyn but never called her Mama. Evelyn saw the warning signs early, but she stayed out of it. "He's grown now," she told herself. "Let him live." Then came the day Ryan asked her to co-sign a business loan. "I just need your name on it," he said, flashing that boyish grin that used to melt her heart. "Just for collateral. I'd never put you at risk." Evelyn looked over the papers. She wasn't a lawyer, but she wasn't dumb either. Something about the wording didn't sit right. "You sure about this?" she asked. "Come on, Mama. Don't you trust me?" And that was it. Those words. "Don't you trust me?" So she signed. Over the next year, Ryan's tone changed. He still called her Mama, but it felt thinner now. Like a script. He'd stop by less, answer calls slower, and when he did show up, Natalie always seemed to be waiting in the car, engine running. Evelyn wasn't sure when it happened, but she started to feel like a guest in her own home. One Saturday afternoon, Ryan came over with a folder and a smile. "Hey, Mama. I've got a few documents I need help with. Just signatures, real estate stuff. You know how it is." He set the papers down. She looked at them. Confusing language, legalese, not the kind of thing you skim over. He tapped the line at the bottom. "Just here. And here. It's just about refinancing the property. Lower taxes and all." She hesitated. "Should I have CJ take a look? He used to help your daddy with." Ryan cut her off, just a little too sharp. "Mama, come on. It's nothing. Don't you trust me?" And there it was again. That phrase. Like a dagger wrapped in silk. So she signed. 2 months later, she found out she'd signed over the deed. The house wasn't in her name anymore. It was his. Entirely. The day it became real was the day she came home and found the locks changed. She tried her key. It didn't turn. She knocked. Natalie answered with a smirk and said, "Oh, Ryan said you might stop by. We thought you'd be staying with your niece for a bit." Evelyn stood there, keys in hand, heart in pieces. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just walked away. Back to her car. Back to nowhere. The next day, Ryan texted, "Just until we get things settled. It's not personal, Mama. Just business." But what he didn't know, what he never even suspected, was that the woman he just kicked out had something no one knew about. A bank account. A settlement. A silent fortune, untouched for 14 years. $9.50 million. And now, she was done staying quiet. Evelyn never liked making scenes. She didn't believe in shouting matches or drama at the front porch. That wasn't her way. Instead, she packed a small suitcase, folded 2 sweaters, 1 dress, and her mother's old Bible, and got in her car. She drove 5 hours east to her niece Carla's house, where the guest room still had a quilt she made for Ryan when he was 12. It took everything in her not to cry. But she didn't. Not yet. Because tears, she figured, were for people who hadn't already buried husbands, held dying hands in ERs, and raised a boy with trauma in his bones. This was just a betrayal. And betrayals she could handle. Carla poured tea and waited until Evelyn finally spoke. "He changed the locks," Evelyn whispered. Carla gasped. "He what? You mean, he kicked you out of your own house?" Evelyn nodded, slow and steady. "And I let him. Because I needed to see just how far he'd go." There was a long silence. Carla looked down, then back up. "And Evie, I know you've always played it close to the chest, but what are you gonna do now?" Evelyn leaned back in the chair, took a deep breath, and said something Carla would never forget. "I think it's time I remind that boy who he's dealing with." And that's when Evelyn made the call. Not to Ryan, but to a man named C.J. Holloway. C.J. had been a junior associate at the law firm her late husband once used. Young, a little sarcastic, but smart in a dangerous way. He still sent Evelyn birthday cards every year, and when he picked up the phone, his voice lit up. "Ms. Brooks! It's been too long. What can I do for you?" She didn't waste words. "I need to know if signing something under emotional manipulation counts as fraud." That got his attention. They met in person 2 days later. Evelyn came prepared, with every document Ryan had ever asked her to sign, neatly filed, highlighted, and annotated with sticky notes in perfect cursive handwriting. CJ looked through the paperwork, eyes narrowing by the minute. "Did he tell you what these were?" "He told me it was refinancing. Said it'd save me money." "Did he explain that signing this gave him full ownership?" "No. He just told me to trust him." CJ nodded slowly. "Then we've got something. Actually, we've got a lot." CJ got to work. They filed a petition for fraudulent transfer, citing undue influence, lack of informed consent, and elder exploitation. It wouldn't be a quick case. But it was solid. Especially since Ryan had never left a paper trail clean. While the legal wheels turned, Evelyn made moves of her own. She accessed her inheritance account. The one her late husband had set up after selling off land before he passed. $9.5 million. Untouched. Unspoken of. Waiting. She hadn't used a dime of it because she didn't want Ryan to grow up entitled. But now, that money had a mission. And Evelyn had a new fire in her chest. Back at her old house, Ryan and Natalie lived like they'd won the lottery. He redecorated the living room, bought a new fridge, even started renting out one of the rooms on Airbnb. Natalie posted Instagram stories. Boss life. Built from the bottom. But neither of them noticed that a private investigator, hired by Evelyn, had started taking notes. Photos. Receipts. Even audio. Every single detail added to the growing file CJ was building. Meanwhile, Evelyn moved quietly, No social media. No rants. Just purpose. 3 weeks later, Evelyn returned to the house. She didn't barge in. She knocked. Ryan answered in gym shorts and a branded hoodie, sipping a protein shake. His smile faded fast when he saw her. "Ma, what are you doing here?" She stayed calm. Cool. Like she was ordering pie at a diner. "I just came to say something." He looked back over his shoulder, probably checking to see if Natalie was nearby. Then he stepped out, letting the screen door separate them. "If this is about the house." Evelyn raised a hand. "Let me finish." He paused. She spoke. "I raised you when nobody else would. Not because I had to. Not because I wanted to be thanked. I did it because I saw a child who needed love. And I gave you every ounce I had." Ryan's eyes flickered. "I gave up sleep, vacations, time, and my body for you. And I never once made you feel like a guest in this life. But you repaid me with a signature and a locked change." He rubbed the back of his neck. "You signed, Ma? I didn't force. Don't call me Ma if you don't mean it." Silence. She straightened. "I'm not here to argue. Just to tell you this, I know what you did. And you should know something too. I'm not broke. Never was." Ryan blinked. "What?" "I have enough money to buy this house 10 times over. I just chose not to." His face changed, first disbelief, then panic, then something like shame. "I didn't know." "You weren't supposed to," she said. "Because love isn't a business. And loyalty can't be bought." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. This will go where it needs to go. I just wanted to look you in the eye one last time before it does." Ryan swallowed. "You're going to sue me?" "No," she said. "I'm going to remind you what a real home costs." And with that, she turned and walked away. No yelling. No begging. Just a woman who finally remembered her worth. By the time Evelyn got back to Carla's house, the wheels were already turning. CJ had filed the official petition. It was clean, concise, and utterly damning. The court date was set for 6 weeks later. Ryan hadn't responded. No lawyer. No statements. Just silence. But silence can be loud when you know what's coming. And Evelyn? She wasn't just coming for the house. She was coming for her dignity, her name, and every ounce of respect she'd earned and lost. CJ gathered every thread. The text messages Ryan had sent her in the months leading up to the deed's signing. The ones that said, "Just trust me," and "It's standard paperwork, nothing crazy." The emails from his real estate buddy congratulating him after the transfer. The Instagram posts of Ryan flaunting his new kingdom. Even Natalie's bragging on Facebook that said, "Sometimes you gotta make bold moves. You can't wait for people to die to get what's owed." That one hit CJ like a truck. "This isn't just manipulation," he told Evelyn. "It's premeditated exploitation." Evelyn just nodded. "Then let's call it what it is." The courtroom was quiet the morning Evelyn walked in. No cameras. No crowd. Just law. Ryan didn't show up. No statement. No attorney. Not even an email to the clerk. Natalie? Gone. She'd apparently returned to Dallas 2 weeks earlier, alone. CJ stood with Evelyn at the petitioner's table, calm and polished. The judge, a seasoned woman in her 60s, adjusted her glasses and glanced over the documentation. The hearing lasted less than 25 minutes. Evelyn's testimony was brief. Factual. Not emotional. "I was told I was signing a refinancing document. There was no independent counsel. No explanation. I was asked to trust. And I did." The judge didn't ask many questions. She just read, frowned, and made a note. When the gavel came down, it was like thunder in Evelyn's chest. "This court finds sufficient evidence of undue influence and deceptive transfer. The deed shall be nullified, and ownership returned to Ms. Evelyn Brooks. Case closed." That was it. Just like that, she had her house back. But she didn't want it. 3 days later, Evelyn drove by her old home. The porch light was out. Blinds drawn. No cars in the driveway. She stepped inside with the key the court had returned to her. It was quiet, eerily quiet. The furniture was gone. Appliances too. Even the light bulbs in the upstairs hallway had been unscrewed. It was stripped like a forgotten shell. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood in the middle of the empty living room and whispered, "I made this house a home. And you gutted it." She turned and walked out. Locked the door behind her, for the last time. Back at Carla's, Evelyn brewed tea and pulled out an old photo album. Inside were faded snapshots of her and her late husband, Len. Their wedding day. Their first car. That little fishing trip in Pascagoula, Mississippi, the one they always said they'd return to once he retired. But he never made it to retirement. Evelyn closed the album. "Maybe it's time to do something for someone else," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" Carla asked. "I mean, what if this didn't happen to me for nothing? What if I can make sure someone else doesn't end up on a porch with no key and no place to go?" That night, Evelyn opened a new bank account, funded with $2.7 million from her inheritance. And she made another call to CJ. Within 3 weeks, Evelyn had bought 3 modest homes in Pascagoula. Each one no bigger than 1,400 square feet. Nothing flashy. No frills. Just safe, clean spaces. She renovated them herself, well, mostly. She paid local contractors to handle the heavy lifting, but she picked the paint, the curtains, even planted flowers herself. By the end of month 2, the project was ready. She called it Len's Place, named after her late husband. A tribute. A promise. Safe housing for women over 60 who had been displaced, abandoned, or tricked out of their homes. The first resident was Alma, 74, evicted by her grandson when she couldn't babysit full-time anymore. The second was Darlene, whose daughter sold her home while she was recovering from hip surgery. They weren't statistics. They were survivors. And Evelyn cooked for them every Sunday. Not out of duty, but out of love. She didn't need to explain her story. They could see it in her eyes, the kind of quiet strength that only comes after your heart's been broken and rebuilt by your own hands. CJ came by one weekend, papers in hand and a grin on his face. "You know, I could get you funding for this. You could go statewide. Billboard, website, maybe even a TED Talk." Evelyn laughed. "Child, I don't need all that." He smiled. "But others might. You turned betrayal into a blueprint. That's not something most people can do." Evelyn sipped her tea. "I just did what my mama taught me. You don't fold when you're cornered. You plant your feet. You pray. And you protect your peace." Evelyn never raised her voice. Never slammed a door. Never sought revenge. She chose justice. She chose legacy. She chose peace. Ryan never called. Never wrote. But that didn't matter anymore. Because Evelyn had learned something most people never do. You can love someone with everything you've got, and they can still leave you empty. Not because you failed them, but because they chose not to be full. And that truth set her free. One morning, nearly a year after the courtroom gavel had given her closure and her name back, Evelyn sat alone on the back porch of Len's Place. A light breeze rustled the magnolia trees. The air smelled like cut grass and coffee. She had a warm fleece blanket over her knees, a chipped ceramic mug in hand, and the kind of silence around her that didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. Inside, Alma was upstairs crocheting. Darlene hummed in the kitchen as she cleaned greens for supper. This was peace. But peace has a funny way of testing itself. Because that morning, a letter arrived. There was no return address. No markings. Just her name, handwritten in a shaky script she hadn't seen in almost a year. She didn't recognize the envelope at first. But the handwriting that hit like a ghost stepping out of memory. She opened it carefully. Inside was a note. Short. Ragged around the edges. Smudged, like someone had rewritten it several times before mailing. It said, I messed up. I see that now. I don't know why I did it the way I did. Maybe I thought I was owed something. Maybe I just never understood what you gave me. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say it. You didn't deserve what I did. I hope you're okay. Ryan. Evelyn didn't cry. She didn't crumble. She simply folded the note neatly and placed it in the back of her Bible, tucked between Psalm 27 and Proverbs 3. Not because she planned to forget, but because some wounds aren't meant to be reopened, just remembered. That afternoon, Carla called. You okay? She asked. You sound far away. I'm here, Evelyn replied. Just thinking. Carla was quiet. Then asked gently, Did you get something in the mail? Evelyn laughed, not out of joy, but that tired kind of laugh you give when the universe won't let you sit still for too long. I did. And, I don't know. He said he was sorry. Said he finally saw what he'd done. Do you believe him? Evelyn looked out at the horizon. I believe he regrets it, she said. But that's not the same as making it right. People asked Evelyn sometimes why she didn't move back into her house once it was legally returned to her. She'd always answer the same way. Too many ghosts in the walls. Too many meals that felt like rehearsals for goodbye. She sold the property 2 months after the court ruling. The new owner, a retired schoolteacher from Lafayette, had called Evelyn after the sale just to say, This house feels heavy. Like it's been through something. Evelyn had replied, It has. But it's yours now. Fill it with better memories. People assumed Evelyn had gotten justice when she won the lawsuit. But justice wasn't what gave her peace. Purpose did. With the money Ryan never knew she had, her $9.5 million inheritance, Evelyn funded a full nonprofit program. Not just the 3 houses. By the end of the year, Len's place had 5 homes, 3 social workers, 2 therapists, and a small shuttle bus that took the ladies to doctor appointments, grocery runs, and even bingo nights. She didn't do it for recognition. She did it so no woman would ever again sit alone on a stranger's porch, holding her life in a garbage bag. Porch swing. It was dusk, sky all orange and lavender, crickets warming up in the tall grass. Alma looked over and said, I never asked what happened with your son. Evelyn smiled. You didn't need to. You see it in how I carry myself. In what I built. They nodded. That night, Evelyn sat with her Bible open and looked at the letter again. She didn't need to burn it. Didn't need to write back. Didn't need to tell the world she forgave him. Because forgiveness, for her, was never about releasing him from guilt. It was about releasing herself from grief. She finally understood what her mother had once told her. Loving someone doesn't mean you owe them your future. It just means you gave them your past with grace. Evelyn had learned one of the hardest truths of all. You can do everything right and still lose someone. You can raise them, feed them, defend them, clothe them, and still be discarded like yesterday's news. But that loss? It's not your failure. It's their choice. And it says everything about them, and nothing about your worth. Real love doesn't need ownership. Real mothers don't fold. And real power? It doesn't scream, threaten, or beg. It rebuilds. Quietly. From the ground up. Brick by brick. Just like Evelyn did. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you of someone you've lost, loved, or had to walk away from, share it. Share it with the friend who's struggling to let go. With the mother who gave her all and got little back. With the woman who's been told her story doesn't matter. Because stories like Evelyn's? They don't just teach us what pain looks like. They teach us how to survive it. And how to turn survival into sanctuary. Real love can't be stolen. Real legacy doesn't crumble. And real strength? It starts when everything else ends.